This changes everything for the Toronto Maple Leafs. We have multiple shocking new reports as it pertains to Mitch Marner and his future in Toronto that has fans fired up. We're to write down these new updates and discuss what it means going forward as it changes everything surrounding the landscape of this offseason. We also have some other things to dive into today, folks. Before we get into it, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, you guys have been absolute beasts. 71% of you are watching right now aren't subscribed, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. There's a lot to go over today, and of course, we've been talking about Mitch Marner, Matthew Knies, all these different guys. And this whole offseason is going to rely and everything's going to be dependent on Mitch Marner and whether he leaves or stays in Toronto. And we have some new reports now that are very intriguing and has fans a little bit torn, at least from what we're seeing, online and things like that. David Painada has come out this afternoon and revealed that contrary to a lot of people's beliefs, myself included a little bit here, Marner has not closed the door on a return to Toronto. Now, there's been a lot of agent work with Darren Dreger behind the scenes, meaning Dreger's tweeting some things out about how he might stay and all the leverage agents of craziness is going on right now. But the most recent report here is that he actually hasn't closed the door on Toronto.
I think a lot of this is mind games from Darren Ferris at this point in the Mitch Marner camp. Maybe not mind games, but a lot of it is negotiation tactics. I do truly believe that at this point. I think Mitch Marner ultimately, at this point, with all the information we have available to us, now that the Leafs have officially finished all their press conferences until basically next year, with all the information we have present, I think Mitch Marner is going to leave. I don't think he's going to resign. I don't think he's going to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. But a lot of this is posturing and a lot of it is negotiation tactics. So I can appreciate that. I guess it's been going on the whole time that Mitch Marner has been a Maple Leaf with Darren Ferris, but the whole thing with Sam Bennett as well, they share an agent, right? So I think it is a lot of, Darren Ferris putting this out in the media. So keep that all in mind. And again, I do think that Mitch Marner's out the door. Could it be a sign and trade? I don't think his camp has any interest in doing that. Honestly, I don't think they want to help the Toronto Maple Leafs, but that's the last thing that, I think that could be something that could happen. They could end up doing something and agreeing on something like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But ultimately, with everything we've heard so far, I do think Mitch Marner is going to walk. And it's not only because of him. Yes, he has a say, right? And I do think he probably wants to leave by everything that we've heard. And, we've been covering some of the reports the last couple of days, but Brad Treliving as well. He said he wants to change the DNA of the team. If you want to change the DNA of the team, and you're re-signing John Tavares, Matthew Knies, and Mitch Marner, what DNA are you changing? So I do believe that Mitch Marner is on his way out.
Yeah, and we're going to have another report that kind of relates to that. And again, but the most recent one from David Painada, at least, is that he hasn't closed the door on returning. Elliot Freeman has said similar things, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And you can see here from Anna Garrett, Mitch and his team want to stay. They always had this as the plan to get the most money. Very good chance he stays. So there's been some rumblings lately about how, despite all the rumors and the contrary reports here, and contrary to popular belief, he could remain in Toronto, which is always going to be an option. And I wouldn't be surprised if Mitch Marner wants to maybe stay and they're trying to play mind games and things like that. But I still don't think, based on Brad Treliving's press conference and end of season presser, that he wants to, that Brad Treliving necessarily wants to have him return, especially at the money that he wants, which is 13 to 14 million. But this new report also dropped from David Painada. Now, while he's also saying yes and closed the door on a return, he also came out and said that despite that, Mitch Marner has a list of 7 or 8 teams that he's looking at. So for the first time, we have clear-cut teams, about 7 or 8, that he is interested in coming to. As previously noted, the Vegas Golden Knights, also the Los Angeles Kings now are in the mix. San Jose, Columbus, and Anaheim are preparing for big offers as well. And we also have one other team, which we'll dive into in a minute here. But Darius, it seems now that slowly but surely, as we approach July 1st, the day that he can officially sign, of course, we'll probably hear before then if he's going to re-sign with the Leafs or not, and what team he's going to go to before it becomes official pen and paper. I think that now we're going to slowly start to hear more about these teams. And a lot of these teams make sense, but a lot of them here aren't winners. And very interesting because not only they're not winners, a bit out of the spotlight, but also they can drop big money on Mitch Marner because, of course, they have a lot of rookie contracts and also just not having a lot of star players that they are paying, unlike the Leafs.
Yeah, I mean, if he goes to Anaheim, San Jose, Columbus, right? There's a couple of names on that list. You're not going to win a Stanley Cup anytime soon. So like I was saying, mid last week, if Mitch Marner ends up picking one of those teams, that tells us everything we need to know. It was always about the money, right? So that's going to be interesting to monitor. And with Vegas too, like it's going to be difficult for them to sign him. I'm sure they're going to be able to get it done. They always do, but it would be difficult for them to sign him. The other interesting thing out of Vegas too is Nick Hague is now available. I would love Nick Hague on the Toronto Maple Leafs. So that's going to be interesting. Again, I don't think a sign and trade's on the table right now. It's still possible, right? Anything's possible until July 1st, but I don't think that Marner's camp wants to do that. So it's going to be interesting. That's going to tell us everything we need to know about the player. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to say the least in terms of, does Bradshaw Living even want to bring this player back? And one thing that I keep seeing as well from, people in the YouTube comments, people on Twitter, Reddit, all of that. How do you replace a 100-point player that plays in all situations? How are you going to do that? I don't think this is about replacing Mitch Marner anymore. You don't want a guy to come in and play like Mitch Marner. You have to change the makeup of this team, and you need guys to come in, whether they're older or younger, which I don't think they're going to be younger, I'll tell you that, to come in and win and have a winning mentality and play the game a different style. This is not about replacing Mitch Marner anymore. And the other thing, too, let's keep in mind, this was Mitch Marner's first 100-point season. Austin Matthews has multiple, right? And he's locked up. He's not going anywhere. William Nylander as well. He's not going anywhere, right? So we need guys who can perform in the playoffs. I've seen it from Matthews. I've seen it from Nylander in the past. And a lot of people like to discredit that. Were they good in this year's playoffs? At times, right? And did they show up in the big moments? No. Marner didn't. They didn't either, right? We can all agree on that. But I have seen it from those guys. I've never seen it from Marner. So it's not about replacing Mitch Marner anymore at this point. It's about going out, changing the makeup of this team. And I'm curious to see what that looks like. But we have to go through this first. And obviously, there's still a lot to it, apparently.
And obviously, as you can see here, like we discussed in previous videos, and of course in this one, Marner has seemingly no interest in helping the Toronto Maple Leafs in a sign and trade, but B, he already turned down the most expensive contract offer in Leafs history. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So we also have a new report from Elliot Friedman here, and it is a very interesting one. He's come out into the Hurricanes still want a superstar and will try again to land Mitch Marner. So a pretty huge update from Elliot Friedman. And obviously, Hurricanes aren't listed in the initial report we just discussed from David Pagnotta, but it seems he's among the 7 or 8 teams. And I do ultimately think for a team that wanted Mitch Marner, but obviously preferred a different package, and also reports came out that the reason they didn't trade him to the Leafs was mainly because they didn't want to run into Mikko Rantanen in the playoffs, which wouldn't have happened anyways. But I digress. It seems that the Hurricanes are heavily in and trying to land Mitch Marner this summer, which isn't too surprising, but at the same time, there's a lot of teams, both non-contenders and contenders, that are going to be trying to land Mitch Marner, and it's going to be a bloodbath if the Leafs decide to try to get him, but it's interesting. Another new target has been revealed this time from Elliot Friedman.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because I think that while they're not named in a lot of the reports that we've been looking at, I think that he could end up in Carolina actually, because him nixing the trade at the trade deadline, I think was more about him just saying, no, I don't want to be traded and I don't want to help you, than I don't want to go to Carolina. I think it was more about like, no, I'm not going to help you guys by all accounts, because that's, what we've been hearing the last week. No, we don't want to hear you. We do not want to help this organization in any way, with a sign and trade and all of that. I think a lot of this goes back as well to his rookie season. If I remember correctly, Lou Lamoriello didn't like to give rookies bonuses. And we see a lot of that around the league. That is common practice. And didn't give Marner one. I'm pretty sure that, there was one to Austin Matthews, and I don't think that Marner's camp liked that too much, and that Matthews was the guy from day one kind of thing. So I think that dates back to then. And then obviously Matthews getting more on his contract in 2019. So this has been a thing for a while, I think, at this point. And I think the Toronto Maple Leafs and Bradshaw Living, looking back at the press conference the other day, I feel like Bradshaw Living's just tired. He's like, I want to build a winner. And I feel like I know how to get there. And I feel like I've done some really good things with the goaltending and the defense. What can I do with the offense at this point? Now that I can finally make some changes, because obviously since he's been hired, it's kind of been locked in, right? So I think that's the direction they're going in without Mitch Marner, and they're going to see what they can do with the rest of the team. And I think Marner is probably going to go to, a team that is not in contention. I think he's, going to end up going to an Anaheim, a team that's going to pay him maybe $14 million.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Let us know what your thoughts are on this. One quick thing before we wrap up. Out of these, you see a discussion. If you hypothetically had to pick one of these overpaid contracts, it would be for Mitch Marner or Sam Bennett. And just obviously, he's talking about the Red Wings here, but we can obviously refer to it from the Leafs perspective because very similar situations. Let us know down below, 10/7 or 14/7. I don't feel comfortable giving Bennett necessarily $10 million, but let us know down below your thoughts are on that. Yeah, as well as, of course, the recent reports surrounding Mitch Marner. Things are getting very interesting. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest Leafs news. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.